Act 1, Scene 3. It is a little after 6 o'clock in the evening 2 months later. Margot is in the bedroom at the right, studying. Mr. Von Don is lying down in the attic room above. The rest of the family is in the main room. Anne and Peter sit opposite each other at the center table where they have been doing their lessons. Mrs. Frank is on the couch. Mrs. Van Daan is seated with her fur coat on which she has been sewing in her lap. None of them are wearing their shoes. Their eyes are on Mr. Frank, waiting for him to give them the signal which will release them from their day-long quiet. Mr. Frank, his shoes in his hand, stands looking down out the window at the back, watching to be sure that all the workmen have left the building below. After a few seconds of motionless silence, Mr. Frank turns from the window.
It's safe now. The last workman has left.
Whee!
Anne,
I'm first for the WC.
She hurries off to the bathroom. Mrs. Frank puts on her shoes and starts up the sink to prepare supper. Anne sneaks Peter's shoes from under the table and hides them behind her back. Mr. Frank goes into Margot's room.
6 o'clock. School's over.
Margot gets up, stretching. Mr. Frank sits down to put on his shoes. In the main room, Peter tries to find his.
Have you seen my shoes?
Your shoes?
You've taken them, haven't you?
I don't know what you're talking about.
You're going to be sorry.
Am I?
Peter goes after her. Anne, with the shoes in her hand, runs from him, dodging behind her mother.
Anne, dear.
Wait till I get you.
I'm waiting. Don't! Peter, stop it! Ouch! Anne, Peter.
Suddenly, Peter becomes self-conscious. He grabs his shoes roughly and starts for his room.
Peter, where are you going? Come dance with me.
I tell you, I don't know how.
I'll teach you.
I'm going to give Mushi his dinner.
Can I watch?
He doesn't like people around while he eats.
Peter, please.
No.
Anne, dear, I think you shouldn't play like that with Peter. It's not dignified. Who cares if it's dignified? I don't want to be dignified.
Mr. Frank and Margot come from the room on the right. Margot goes to help her mother. Mr. Frank starts for the center table to correct Margot's school papers.
You complain that I don't treat you like a grown-up, but when I do, you resent it. I only want some fun, someone to laugh and clown with. After you've sat all day and hardly moved, you've got to have some fun. I don't know what's the matter with that boy.
He isn't used to girls. Give him a little time.
Time? Isn't 2 months time? I could cry. Come on, Margot, dance with me. Come on, please.
I have to help with supper.
You know we're going to forget how to dance. When we get out, we won't remember a thing.
She starts to sing and dance by herself. Mr. Frank takes her in his arms, waltzing with her. Mrs. Van Daan comes in from the bathroom.
Next. Where's Peter?
Where would he be?
He hasn't finished his lessons, has he? His father will kill him if he catches him in there with that cat and his work not done. Anne, get him out of there, will you?
Peter? Peter?
What is it?
Your mother says to come out.
I'm giving Mushi his dinner.
You know what your father says.
For heaven's sake, I haven't even looked at him since lunch.
I'm just telling you, that's all.
I'll feed him.
I don't want you in there.
Peter.
Then give him his dinner and come right out, you hear?
He comes back to the table. Anne shuts the door of Peter's room after her and disappears behind the curtain covering his closet.
Now, is that any way to talk to your little girlfriend?
Mother, for heaven's sake, will you please stop saying that?
Look at him blush, look at him.
Please, I'm not... Anyway, let me alone, will you?
He acts like it's something to be ashamed of. It's nothing to be ashamed of to have a little girlfriend.
You're crazy. She's only 13.
So what? And you're 16. Just perfect. Your father's 10 years older than I am. I warn you, Mr. Frank, if this war lasts much longer, we're going to be related. And then...
Mazel tov!
I wonder where Meep is. She's usually so prompt.
Suddenly, everything else is forgotten as they hear the sound of an automobile coming to a screeching stop in the street below. They are tense, motionless in their terror. The car starts away. A wave of relief sweeps over them. They pick up their occupations again. Anne flings open the door of Peter's room, making a dramatic entrance. She is dressed in Peter's clothes. Peter looks at her in fury. The others are amused.
Good evening, everyone. Forgive me if I don't stay. I have a friend waiting for me in there. My friend Tom Cat. Some people say that we look alike, but Tom has the most beautiful whiskers, and I only have a little fuzz. I'm hoping in time.
All right, Mrs. Quack Quack.
Peter!
I heard about you. How you talked so much in class they called you Mrs. Quack Quack. How Mr. Sminner made you write a composition. Quack Quack, said Mrs. Quack Quack.
Well, go on, tell them the rest. How it was so good he read it out loud to the class, and then read it to all his other classes.
Quack, 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 quack.
You are the most intolerable, insufferable boy I've ever met.
Quack, quack, quack.
That's right, Annika. Give it to him.
With all the boys in the world, why I had to get locked up with one like you.
Quack, quack, quack. And from now on, stay out of my room.
As Peter passes her, Anne puts out her foot, tripping him. He picks himself up and goes on into his room.
Anne, dear, your hair. You're warm. Are you feeling all right? Please, Mother. You haven't a fever, have you? No. You know we can't call a doctor here, ever. There's only one thing to do. Watch carefully. Prevent an illness before it comes. Let me see your tongue. Mother, this is perfectly absurd. Anne, dear, don't be such a baby. Let me see your tongue.
You hear your mother, Anne.
Come on, open up. You seem all right, but perhaps an aspirin.
For heaven's sake, don't give that child any pills. I waited for 15 minutes this morning for her to come out of the WC.
I was washing my hair.
I think there's nothing the matter with our Anne that a ride on her bike or a visit with her friend Joby DeWall wouldn't cure. Isn't that so, Anne?
Mr. Van Dam comes down into the room. From outside, we hear faint sounds of bombers going over in bursts of ack-ack.
Meat not come yet?
The workman just left a little while ago.
What's for dinner tonight?
Beans.
Not again.
Poor Pootie. I know. But what can we do? That's all meat brought us.
Mr. Van Dam starts to pace, his hands behind his back. Anne follows behind him, imitating him.
We are now in We are now in what is known as the bean cycle. Beans boiled, beans on casserole, beans with strings, beans without strings.
Peter has come out of his room. He slides into his place at the table, becoming immediately absorbed in his studies.
I saw you in there playing with your cat.
He just went in for a second, putting his coat away. He's been out here all the time, doing his lessons.
Anne, you got an excellent in your history paper today, and very good in Latin.
How about algebra?
I'll have to make a confession. Up until now, I've managed to stay ahead of you in algebra. Today, you caught up with me. We'll leave it to Margot to correct.
Isn't algebra vile, Pim?
Vile!
How did I do?
Excellent, 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 excellent.
You should have used the subjunctive here.
Should I? I thought, look here, I didn't use it here.
Mrs. Van Daan, may I try on your coat? No, Anne.
It's all right. Be careful with it. My father gave it to me the year before he died. He always bought the best money could buy.
Mrs. Van Daan, did you have a lot of boyfriends before you were married? Anne, that's a personal question. It's not courteous to ask such personal questions.
Oh, I don't mind. Our house was always swimming with boys. When I was a girl, we had...
Oh God, not again.
Shut up. One summer, we had a big house in Hilversum. The boys came buzzing around like bees around a jam pot. And when I was 16, we were wearing our skirts very short those days. And I had good-looking legs. I still have them. I may not be as pretty as I used to be, but I still have my legs. How about it, Mr. Frank?
All right, we see that.
I'm not asking you. I'm asking Mr. Frank.
Mother, for heaven's sake.
Oh, I embarrass you, do I? Well, I just hope the girl you marry has as good. My father used to worry about me with so many boys hanging around. He told me, if any of them get fresh, you say to them, remember, Mr. So-and-so, remember, I'm a lady.
Remember, Mr. So-and-so, remember, I'm a lady.
Look at you talking that way in front of her. Don't you know she puts it all down in that diary?
So, if she does, I'm only telling the truth.
Anne stretches out, putting her ear to the floor, listening to what is going on below. The sound of the bombers fades away.
Would you mind, Peter, if I moved you over to the couch? Meat must have the radio on.
Haven't you finished yet?
No.
You ought to be ashamed of yourself.
All right. I'm a dunce. I'm a hopeless case. Why do I go on?
You're not hopeless. Don't talk that way. It's just that you haven't anyone to help you like the girls have. Maybe you could help him, Mr. Frank?
I'm sure that his father.
Not me. I can't do anything with him. He won't listen to me. You go ahead if you want.
What about it, Peter? Shall we make our school co-educational?
You're an angel, Mr. Frank, an angel. I don't know why I didn't meet you before I met that one there. Here, sit down, Mr. Frank. Now, Peter, you listen to Mr. Frank.
It might be better for us to go into Peter's room.
That's right. You go in there, Peter. You listen to Mr. Frank. Mr. Frank is a highly educated man.
As Mr. Frank is about to follow Peter into his room, Mrs. Frank stops him and wipes the lipstick from his lips. Then she closes the door after them.
Shh, I can hear a man's voice talking.
Isn't it bad enough here without your sprawling all over the place?
If you didn't smoke so much, you wouldn't be so bad-tempered.
Am I smoking? Do you see me smoking?
Don't tell me you've used up all those cigarettes.
One package. Meat only brought me one package.
It's a filthy habit anyway. It's a good time to break yourself.
Oh, stop it, please.
You're smoking up all our money. You know that, don't you?
Will you shut up?
During this, Mrs. Frank and Margot have studiously kept their eyes down, but Anne, seated on the floor, has been following the discussion interestedly. Mr. Van Dam turns to see her staring up at him.
And what are you staring at?